What's up, dudes and dudettes of the internet? My name's Scythe, and this is going to be a special side video. Don't know how many of these I'm going to end up making, but there's a couple things that I want to talk about in regards to the Diablo series and what's actually going on with the end game and everything like that, because as a YouTube Let's Player, you kind of got to base your content around certain parameters. Now, when it comes to single player games like Diablo, I pretty much take it upon myself. I have free reign to do whatever I want with it. So I actually already have the entire series fully recorded and done, while that's going to stretch out, and the series is actually going to end, like the final episode is sometime in September, like around the 20th or something like that. Now, I know that that might seem a little bit crazy, especially if we break the fourth wall here, but, you know, normally it's just kind of like if I don't talk about it, nobody really is going to end up noticing. So just a heads up with that, everybody. Absolutely loved it. Fantastic game all the way through. Not to mention, because it's such a fun game, that's why I ended up recording so much. Now, there are certain other games like Trove that I have on the series where I try my best not to get like maybe a day or two ahead of recording schedule, just so that I don't have to rush episodes like I have been lately. Mostly the biggest reason that I rushed this series, though, was because No Man's Sky was coming out. But I wanted to make this special side video just to let you all know what the end game is, what you can actually expect from it, because I've been getting lots of feedback from people just in the comment section on Twitter and everything like that, asking, you know, what's the difference between the PC version and the console. Now, not that I actually am going to talk about the actual differences per se, but I do want to give this game its due time to show you all what the end game is all about, because Diablo is one of the rare games that's actually out, even like just in general, that exists, that has a very tight beginning, a tight middle, and a tight end. Now, right now, you might think, what's going on? Why am I on this character and stuff like that? So I'm going to take a little time to explain that. It means that this video might be a little bit more lengthy, but I want to explain this for the people that don't actually know anything about Diablo, because I've been having a lot of you that have been watching the series have ended up getting Diablo. I've been playing with you off camera and stuff like that, while a lot of you at the end game, you know, you already know all of this stuff anyways. But this is the Crusader. First and foremost, he's the new character from the expansion. I love him. I can't even believe how fun this character is. He's my favorite, even over the mage. I just been having an absolute blast with him. He's like the barbarian, but more, I guess, more geared towards defense. You can still build him to be very, very strong, but I have him very, very tanky. Personally speaking, he is... I think the reason I like him so much is the Paladin from Diablo 2 was one of my favorite characters, and this guy kind of plays that way. Not to mention, he's actually a little bit weirder compared to some of the other characters. We're not going to go through all of his abilities. I'm just going to give you a quick rundown. So his basic attack actually brings up our senses and our chance to block. So we actually have 15% more block chance for 5 seconds, and then the rune of hardened senses increases our attack speed by 15% for 3 seconds. Anytime we end up actually blocking with the hardened senses, right? Then there is the shield bash, which is our right click. This is pretty much the fundamental attack of the build that I actually have, and we'll talk about that a little bit more in the future, just a little bit more further on in this video. So this is just charge at your enemy, bashing him with your shield. I have the rune that just brings up the attack damage of it to 875% weapon damage, plus 300% of your total block chance, which I think our block chance is at like 50% right now. Then there is concentration, which pretty much, I guess I'll just give a quick summary. This ends up putting a healing circle on the ground, like so. And then I also end up having one of my pieces of gear, I think it's this one, yeah. Casting concentration also casts it beneath all of your allies. So that means that this healing ring is going to appear under comrades as well. Not necessarily the Templar. I mean, it does do the Templar, but I mean like other players. That's the big thing. And then speed charge, or steed charge, which is, I mean, look at it. Super duper speed, like seriously. And there's actually some really fun ones. You can end up getting a rune that lets you drag enemies behind you, which could, I guess I could see that being good for dragging enemies out and, you know, away from your friends and stuff like that. Then we've got this is a passive. So the passive reduces the, granting you and your allies 140 increased resistance to all elements. And then when we cast it, that bumps up to 490. And then I have the passive with the rune that actually gives us 7,000 armor for 5 seconds, which I haven't really found to be that useful for allies, but more so for myself, because that actually does increase for our, granting you and your allies the resistance. The resistance is pretty much the key of that. And then the champion ultimate right here pretty much turns us into a big giant monster, and I have it set so that we're regenerating a ton of wraith. And then our passives, we have this one, which while we have a one-handed weapon, our attack speed is increased and all cooldowns are reduced by 15%. He also has a very nice passive here where you can use a two-handed weapon in one hand, but it minuses 20% of that two-handed weapon's total attack. Not to mention it's not as fast as this, right? And then this one, blocking an attack generates even more wraith, which is just our mana. And then no longer dodge, but you get more block chance by 30%. And then I have this one where your primary skill, just our basic attack, generates an additional 9 wraith, increasing the maximum wraith by 30. So that's pretty much the quick rundown of this character. I'll show you how he works in a minute. But otherwise, for right now, this is adventure mode, folks. So I wanted to explain that a little bit and why everything's looking so weird. So in adventure mode, we'll talk about adventure mode before we talk about the season. In adventure mode, pretty much the entire game, all of the acts are immediately available to you, and then you can do bounties. So you see all these exclamation marks and you hover over it, that's all the bounties. So we got kill this guy, kill this other guy, kill Diablo himself, and then there is also a bonus which gives us an extra cash. Now you can see that down here. These caches you end up getting for completing all of the bounties in an act. So you always pretty much want to go towards the one that has the bonus, and then once we end up completing all the bonuses or bounties in Act 2, the bonus would randomly select a different act, and then we would go towards that, right? So these exclamation marks mark all the bounties. Zoltan Cole, so we have to just kill the boss right there. Then there's also the Key Warden boss, the keys. You actually use those here. Let me show you this because this is a little bit confusing. Okay, you actually go to New Tristram. If you kill any of these key bosses, they're not part of the bounties, they're just kind of a thing that you can do afterwards at the end game, right? So if you come all the way over here, there's this building, and I remember when this was first being introduced, you have to attack it, just hold shift and attack it, and then you go into here, use any of those key items that you end up getting, and it'll create a separate portal in this room. There's a whole bunch of them, one per act, except for Act 5. I don't think Act 5 has any of them, right? Is there? But that's not Act 5. Act 5 is V. Nope, no key item from any of those. So anyway, what you end up doing is pretty much fighting like 3 bosses at the same time, sometimes 2. Very, very difficult, but very, very rewarding, because then you end up getting crafting components where you can end up crafting amulets and rings that are very, very good and just absolutely crazy, right? Then the other thing too, we'll talk about our gear in a little bit, but otherwise I just wanted to show you that over here in Act 5, if you go to Grey Hollow Island, I think this is the place. Let me take a peek. But there's the Herodric Cube from Diablo 2. Okay, maybe it's not up here. Wait, is that what this is? Blah, I'm dead, I'm an idiot. Okay, I don't exactly know. I'm assuming it's up here, folks. Sorry if I'm wrong about that. I always got carried towards it, so I don't exactly know where you get it, but I'm sure you can just look online. Either way, needless to say, you end up having to go through a little bit of a tedious quest system. It's not tedious at all, actually. You just kind of go through and kill a bunch of stuff. And then you end up getting the Kanai's Cube, which is pretty much like the Herodric Cube. Put a whole bunch of items in here that you transmute with a bunch of different recipes and stuff. This way you get to extract a legendary power, which I ended up putting a ring into the cube that and I used all of these crafting components, which each of these you end up getting for completing all the bounties in a specific act. So you can see this one is obtained from Act 2. So you gotta complete all the bounties in Act 2 in order to farm for the butterfly wing, so on and so forth, etc. And then I deleted the ring that was in here, and you end up getting the property of it. So this is actually a passive going on for us right now. Same with the weapon. I don't actually have one for armor because I haven't had time to farm any of that stuff. And there's just all sorts of different things that you can end up doing. You can upgrade a rare item to legendary. You can convert a set item into a different set item. Very, very cool. Very, very grindy, because this is where the grind definitely comes into play, folks. And then you've got what is called a Nephilim Rift. So when you click on this thing, this is just going to be immediately available. You go to the Nephilim, and then this is just going to be kind of like a special dungeon where you're going to go through it, kill all the enemies, and then you're going to be faced with a specific boss, and pretty much you're going to end up getting a whole bunch of goodies and stuff like that. And then you can also end up getting a Greater Rift key. Greater Rift key is used to open the Greater Rift, and then you can see these are all just the different levels and levels of difficulty. Torment comes after, like, it pretty much is when the game actually starts. It's like I guess the hardest difficulty, and then of course there's Torment 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, all the way up to I think 13 now, which is absolutely insane. I can handle Torment 8, but not necessarily myself alone, because we're more tanky rather than damagey. And anyways, in the Greater Rifts, you'll end up being on a time limit, so don't take something that's way too powerful for you, because otherwise you're gonna take up a whole bunch of time. And then you end up getting, you see the Bane of the Powerful right there? That's actually a specific gem. Yeah, so you get those out of the Greater Rifts, you get a whole bunch of gems, you can collect all of them. You always get a new one each time until you end up having all of them, and then they stay, and that's it. The whole point of these gems is that from completing a Greater Rift, if you complete it on time, you can level up the gem. And pretty much you can level them up to, I think, like 100 or something like that. So that's a whole lot of extra stats right there, right? And then finally, let's talk about the season. I should have been talking about this first, I know, and I'm sorry about that, everybody. Seasons are pretty much kind of the same as they've been doing with Overwatch and stuff like that, where the season, I think, lasts every 3 months. And right now, the rewards for the season are this whole set right here. This is the set that we got because I'm playing on the Crusader, but you can start any character and then you'll end up getting an appropriate set for that character. The one for the mage I already had. The one for the monk is like a nice speedy one, but it requires some other legendaries to use. Either way, I just ended up going for this just because I wanted an excuse to play the Crusader. Didn't know I was going to love him so much. Then you get a portrait frame. I guess it's supposed to be winter themed. I don't know. Maybe because this is the last season of the year, maybe. And then this pet, which passively will run around and gather gold for you, and that's pretty much it. Now, the seasons themselves kind of work in chapters. So you're going to see down here when you start the season, start a seasonal character. A seasonal character is going to be completely separated from all of your other characters. You're going to have your own unique stash. You're going to be starting from square one. You're only going to be able to play with other seasonal characters. Now, at the end of the season, all of this stuff is going to get converted back into your own personal file, and then you can end up accessing your stash and your gear and everything like that, and playing with some of the other players that haven't started from scratch, right? Now, in the different chapters, which are going to show up down here, you got to complete these different tasks. So you can kind of see this was chapter 1. You can always just pause the video if you want to see these, everybody. Chapter 2 ends up getting a little bit harder because you got to craft a level 70 item, which isn't really that difficult. It's not that this is very, very hard to do. I actually grinded this out and was able to do this pretty much in 2 days, which is very slow compared to some of the people that are really at the end game. But for myself personally, like, I've been having a blast with it. Ended up getting this set of gear, and I just had a good time with it, you know. And I know that this whole episode we pretty much just been talking, but we'll go in and kill some stuff in a moment. Don't worry, folks, because I just wanted to show you that we are in Torment 7. I'm not strong. I am not strong. I just wanted to show you that based on the stuff that I've got right now. Most of all, the crux of my build, if you can call it that, I just so happen to have these items, is reduce the remaining cooldown of one of your skills by 1 second when you hit with a resource spending attack. Now, I just keep spamming my right click, and then the cooldown on my Laws of Justice and on my Consecration just keep on going down and down and down, makes me pretty much like we're straight up invincible, folks. Like I've been messing around with my different abilities, trying to give myself a little bit more damage, because otherwise I can tank like Torment 8, no problem. I'm invincible. So I'm gonna show you this right here, even in Torment 7. So as we're right clicking, this is part of our set. You can see this buff down here is actually giving us attack speed. And I mean, look at this. We're Sonic. Like seriously, look how insanely fast we're attacking. It's nuts. And the whole point, the reason that we have such survivability is because I have so much life steal. So I can be standing in the middle. The only things that end up giving me trouble is if I end up getting into a tight spot where there's too many arcane lasers in my face. But otherwise, everything else, like because of the sheer amount of attack speed, I'll get knocked down to one hit and then whoop, back up to full health, no problem. Now, so long as I'm playing with other people, that's just fine, because otherwise you can see it takes a little while, like a little bit too long for me to kill an enemy solo. Like it just does, you know? Let alone these are just normal enemies right here, and you might think, you know, okay, we're killing all right. These are normal enemies, folks, not bosses or anything like that, which are very, very tanky, have a lot of health, and ultimately just take like a million zillion years. Now, let's see right over here, here's this boss enemy right here. So I'm gonna get all up in his face, put my healing circle down. To avoid the icicles, we're gonna use our ult, which you can't really see right now, but we are like all powerful and big and beautiful, and that's why we have so much Wraith, and we also end up negating any of the effects of like ice and stuff like that. And you can see like we're getting hit really, really hard from these guys because it's a very tough difficulty. It's Torment 7, and technically speaking, we're not supposed to be in here yet, but we're surviving. You know, so it's been really, really fun for me to be able to tank like this. However, I did notice right away, like, I am not, like, look at this. It's taking such a long time to kill this one boss, and we can kill him for sure, but greater rifts, like I was saying, folks, are on a time limit. So, yeah, I can't actually complete them fast enough in order to actually get, like, the reward from Torment 7 Greater Rifts, right? But either way, everybody, that, I guess, is pretty much it. Because otherwise, now what the end game is at this point for myself personally would be to farm and farm and farm and farm for very specific site items and stuff like that. Not to mention different legendaries and everything. I've seen a couple really, really cool looking items and junk like that that I would love to experiment with, but unfortunately I don't have the time to grind, and until the season is done and I can actually take this character into the main world, means that I can't get leeched by some of you awesome people, because otherwise, like, I was hanging out, like, just on the normal characters. I was messing around with my alternate mage, and I was going into, like, Torment 10 and getting leeched in there, so it was really, really good and really, really quick and easy to actually find set items and everything like that. So I was able to end up getting like these crazy gear sets and everything like that, and I was able to kind of experiment at my leisure. Whereas now we're kind of like, because we're seasonal, we're doing it from square one all by ourselves, and because of that, like, you know, it would take me a million zillion years to end up getting some of the good stuff. Now, here's one last thing that I do want to mention, folks. This is all the stuff that I've got right now, which is not really that impressive. It's just a couple goodos, right? But anyways, one thing that I did want to mention, because somebody ended up telling me about this one, Detonator in-game told me about this, which I found oddly confusing, so I wanted to clue you all in. You see this item right here? You see how there's, like, it's just a normal item, right? Hover over this belt, you see how it's kind of got a different outline towards it and it's gold? Now, you wouldn't think that that means anything, but apparently that means that this is an ancient item. Ancient items have a whole different level of stats that they can have to them. Like, they have a higher stat cap, right? So eventually down the line, like the top, at least last time I checked, the top Crusader has this set right here, where It's 2 different rings you have to find, and while this is your only item set bonus, every ancient item that you have equipped increases your damage dealt by 100% and reduces your damage taken by 4%. Now, if you could get ancient items on all of your different slots, you could see the potential of that. Like, seriously. But right now, the best set, the only set that I have that has the insane survivability is the one that they end up giving to us, which gives us that insane attack speed. Now, we can use the shield bash, which is what I've been using lately just because it's got more damage than the sweep attack, which I love the sweep attack. It's actually one of my favorite abilities. I mean, look at this. It's beautiful. It sweeps through the enemies, damages all of them. Really, really crazy, especially when we have the high attack speed. Not to mention, it doesn't take as much of our wraith to cast it as the shield bash does. But like I said, I've been trying my best to optimize my damage. But there's not really that much I can do outside of tons and tons and tons and tons of grinding, which I don't know if I have the time for that. That's kind of the biggest reason why I ended up rushing the Diablo series. And I'm sorry about that, folks. But yeah, for those that are enjoying the series, you're going to enjoy it for a couple months now. Well, a couple months into September. And then it's gonna finally come to a close. This will probably be the only video I do of this end game, mostly because I don't have as much time as I did just kind of messing around and playing with this guy, right? Because No Man's Sky is still coming out this week, and if it's as awesome a game as I think it's gonna be, I'm gonna be very, very busy with that. Now, granted, I would love to end up doing a random stream of this if I end up actually just playing it off camera. But I wanted to clue you all in on everything that was going on behind the scenes. Now, these little freaks right here, by the way, are from this ring, which summons a fallen lunatic to your side every 11 seconds. I have absolutely no idea how much damage they do, but they actually do quite a bit. They go in kamikaze and blow themselves up on enemies, right? Yeah, I think that's everything. I hope I covered it all, everybody. Thank you so much for watching. Very much appreciate it. Don't forget to Hadouken the like button for me and show your support throughout the series, because I still am reading all the comments and stuff like that. Still very much appreciate and love you all to death. Sayonara and stay epic.